how did you get into the industry and why?
Well, it's an interesting one, this. I was saying this on an interview the other day. My very first experience of doing any theatre was it was the local Amdram down in Weymouth. And my mum is one of the linchpins of the Operatic Society. And years ago, back in 1983, at the Weymouth Pavilion, they were doing a production of The King and I. And you need all these royal children. They have to come on and they bow to Mrs. Anna and they bow to the king. And then they go and sit down again. And I didn't really want to do it. But I was dragged on it and was told pretty much you're going to do it. They're after kids. I was age 7 at the time.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I had a bit of comedy business with a sticky sweet. And I had to put behind my back very, very slowly. And all of a sudden on the opening night, it was about 1,000 people out there. It's a big theatre. And I suddenly realised if I do this with the sweet, and then I look away, and then I look back at them, and then I look out front, I'm going to get a huge laugh. And I don't know why I knew that age 7, but I did. And I got the laugh, and it was that was it from then on. That was what I wanted to do. It was an amazing feeling.
Yeah. And so what was your first memory of theatre? Like, what was the first show you remember seeing?
Yes, again, an interesting one. So the very, very first show I ever remember seeing was age 3. This is September 1979. Again, it's at the Weymouth Pavilion, scene of many triumphs.
Yeah.
And it was the operatic. Mum was in the chorus of Camelot. I don't know if you know Camelot, by Lerner and Loewe. And so she was in, I remember the band, dreadful. I remember that, and I was age 3. But the show was fascinating to me. It was all about castles.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was quite a magical place. Though, interestingly, as a kid, I never really liked panto.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'm in a minority of one in not really enjoying panto. I feel awful saying it. I feel like I'm swearing in church because I know that panto is massively important because it's often kids' first encounter with theatre, so it's important it's a good one, and often it saves theatres financially. So I understand it's totally important. I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. I remember once going to the Bournemouth Pavilion, age 12. Oh, my mother, who has much to answer for, managed to get me, 11, I was 11, managed to get me taken up on stage to sing There's a Worm at the Bottom of the Garden. Oh, and everyone else is about 6. I was so cross. And the thing is, I can never think of the clever, funny thing to say in that moment.
Yeah.
Only afterwards. But on this occasion, I did, because the comic was going along the line, whoever it was, Silly Billy, and was saying to them, so what's your name? My name's Lucinda. And are you married, Lucinda? No. And I thought, he's going to do that to me, isn't he? And I was at the end of the line, and I thought, what are you going to say? And he came up to me and he said, what's your name? And I said, Jamie. He said, are you married? I said, no, I'm divorced. And it brought the house down. So just for once, I thought of the clever thing to say in that moment.
Yeah.
But no, the short answer to that is the first thing I said was Camelot. Yeah.
So I love panto, but when I went growing up, I could never bring myself to go be brought up on stage, do that bit at the end. I couldn't do it.
I didn't want to. It was my mother managed to get me volunteered for me. No, I didn't. I always say, I mean, I'm the least sort of impromptu performer at a party. I mean, if for karaoke, I have to know what's the key. I want to have it practiced. I want it lit. You know, I'm not one of those ones just stand up with a mic, unless I'm plastered, then I'll do anything.
But yeah, I mean, when I was at uni, we did like a Christmas show. In our second year, we linked up with Polton's Park and we did a Christmas show for them. And I love performing in those types of shows, and I love watching them. But the idea of being brought up on stage and being, audience participation, it doesn't do it for me.
Well, I was once taught a very important lesson that you can say, if ever you don't want to take part in audience participation, you have to remember the 3 magic words. If someone is coming towards you, about to try and take you up on stage, and you really don't want to go, you have to say in a very loud, clear voice, I have fits. And they will leave you alone. They will not come and drag you up on stage. So remember the magic words.
Yeah. Who inspired you growing up? And people in the industry, people outside of the industry.
Well, gosh, lots of people. So I would say just someone who means a huge amount to me was my grandma. We sort of grew up with my grandma. There was no dad on the scene, but there was a nan. So for me, it was never mum and dad, but always mum and nan. And she was a tremendously inspiring figure, clever and kind. And she died at age 97, a ripe old age, a few years ago. But I always say that when somebody who's influenced you that much is no longer with you, when they pass away, in a way they haven't gone, because it's like a thread running through the tapestry of your life. It's inextricably interwoven with your life. You know, a day doesn't go by without you thinking a thought they put there, or saying something that they would have said, or thinking about their response to something, what they would have done. And so therefore they're not gone. In that way, I think you people can achieve immortality.
Yeah.
And then I was very fortunate in that down in this little seaside resort in Weymouth, a lady called Pat Oddie had retired down there, and she'd previously been one of the heads of acting at the Birmingham School of Speech and Drama. Now I think it's the Birmingham School of Acting, isn't it? But back then, and so it's very rare you'd have a head of acting from a major UK drama school in Weymouth, but we had one. And so I used to do a lot of Landry exams and work with her. So she was a huge inspiration. And then everyone you work with. I mean, I worked with Debbie Isaac, who's the creator of the Nativity films, and she's an inspiration. Yeah. She's extraordinary. Yeah. And, you know, everyone you work with, you'll I remember I got a job at the Pitlochry Festival Theatre very shortly after graduating from the Bristol Old Vic. And I just go and watch them work, some of these very experienced actors, because you're there for 7.5 months in the middle of nowhere, really. And beautiful, but there's not much to do other than act and watch people acting. And so it was they were inspirational too.
Yeah. And what was your first professional job when graduating?
Sure. So after I graduated, I'd worked at the Bristol Old Vic with a fabulous director called Sue Wilson, who'd come in to do some radio with us. But she was doing a play called Breaking the Code at the Chester Gateway. And so I was asked in to read for that up into London. And then I got that job. And so I played Christopher in Breaking the Code at the Chester Gateway at the beginning of 2002. So almost 20 years ago. That one. That was my first job, and there's nothing quite as exciting as that, because you then think, well, actually, you're an actor now, aren't you?
Yeah,
you're on your way, hopefully.
Yeah. So there's a lot of positive things about the industry, but you know, when I was training myself, obviously we were always told that it's not the easiest of industries, and it's not sort of a walk in the park. But so, what are some of the hardest or challenging things about the industry that people should know before coming into it? Maybe things you've experienced as well.
Yeah, well, one of the things I think you ought to be told when people are training is you need another job, particularly if you want to do telly.
Yeah.
Because with telly, you might have 4 jobs in a year and look at your IMDb page and go, well, that was a good one.
Yeah.
And think that was great. You had a few episodes on that, and one on that. But you probably, if you count up the days you're actually in working, there aren't that many. And so you need to have another way of supplementing your income. So for instance, I am a principal coach with the London Speech Workshop. I actually trained to be a speech teacher before I trained to be an actor. I went to university doing an academic degree while simultaneously doing external teaching exams with LAMDA. And I got that qualification and then went and got the scholarship at the Bristol Old Vic. So I think that's absolutely key. And I really believe that there are an awful lot of actors, and I was like this for a while, for whom they have not a pleasant life, temping or working, doing a job they don't really enjoy. And almost getting an acting job becomes an escape from their life. And that's not healthy. So, you know, you should never have to escape from your life, I think. You should enjoy your life. And I endeavour to enjoy mine.
And what would you say are some of sort of the misconceptions that people have about what we do? You know, some people outside of the industry, they don't really get what we do. And I've seen over the past few months make a lot of comments. What would you say are some of the misconceptions?
Well, I mean, they're fairly legion, aren't they? I mean, the big one is that it's quite glamorous. It ain't at all. It's quite a tricky existence. I mean, of course, no one is saying. My grandmother had a wonderful phrase, if ever I was complaining too much. She'd say, Jamie, dear, it is not the trenches, and you just have to get on with it. So I'm not claiming that either. but it's not glamorous. You have to take a lot of rejection and be able to roll with that and take a big deep breath and have that inner core of belief. That's absolutely vital in terms of the industry. I also think people have an odd relationship with it. They don't quite understand it. I mean, I used to have friends from Weymouth who used to say, do you know what you should do? You need to go on Coronation Street. You think, oh, I'll have a word with them. You know, it's not quite as simple. It's not quite as simple as that. And also, you know, this whole thing about unemployment. I mean, you imagine a plumber, you know, where as an actor, occasionally you go to a party and someone would say, what are you doing? You're resting, like it was a hilarious joke. I mean, you'd never do that to a plumber, would you go? You say, wow, how are you? Are you unemployed? Yeah, you'd never do it. But, well, it's a small price to pay for a job that, when it's good, is like no other job at all. I mean, genuinely, it is. I understand, of course, why we do it, because when it's good, it's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, remember when we first went into lockdown and the whole industry was being sort of very vocal about wanting financial support from the government, and the mainstream media were fantastic at, you know, putting stuff on their Twitter accounts and their Facebook about, you know, demand, you know, sort of getting the government to help us. And I remember looking at the one that the BBC News put up, and I was looking at their comments section, and the comments section from people outside the industry sort of talking about what we do was just dire, and people sort of saying, you know, we should get a different job, or we should get a proper job. And it's
I mean, the absolute key thing is you just don't read those. There are certain things with the comment sections where I just think generally by people with far too much time on their hands and a walloping chip on the shoulder, and that's not a great combo. So I never I make a point of reading those.
Who's been your favorite person to work with?
Oh gosh, that's a question. Can I pick a few?
Yeah, you can pick it. Yeah, pick as many as you want.
Okay, so I'm going to say, for different reasons, who've I really loved working with. Debbie Isaac, who, as I mentioned on Nativity, is amazing. I don't know if you do you know Debbie, the way she works. It's all through improvisation. There isn't a script, and she just opens doors all the time. So I began to think about myself differently in this industry from working with her. She's also a genius. She knows what's what. She'll know, and I like it. She never directs through riddles. It's like, that's it, or that's it. She makes clear-cut decisions, but she also gives you massive freedom to come up with stuff. If you want a better exit line in a Debbie Isaac production, think of one, try one. She'll tell you she doesn't like it, but you can try, and she won't mind you trying at all. So I love that. So she's wonderful to work with. It was a massive privilege to work with Ricky Gervais on extras. He's a genius. I mean, he's nuclear funny. I mean, I'm pretty good at not corpsing, but there was a scene which you can see on the outtakes where I can't keep it together. I can't, because he's just so funny, and was also really kind and lovely to us. That was such a lovely job. Who else? I'm also going to pick up Celia Imrie, who I was in the film Nativity Rocks with, who was wonderful and so kind. And it's a much sort of underused word, this, but she's a real lady. Do you know what I mean? You just go, what a lady. I said to someone else in an interview once, I think we should all see if we can pass the Celia test. I want to be like Celia when I grow up. I want to say, I think the test has to be, how Celia are you? And then also in that film, I had a ball working with Craig Revel Horwood. It was joyous.
My dad met Craig a few years ago, actually. He was directing a play at the Watermill Theatre down in Newbury. And my dad was at the local pub with some students he works with. He works with autistic students, and Craig Revel Horwood came over and spoke to the students and interacted with them, and actually ended up paying their bill. He ended up going over.
Yeah, it's very, very Craig. He's a lovely, lovely chap. Oh, we did have a giggle. Oh, we had a giggle. I can remember the days, because we were the nasty pair doing the auditions for the kids. And I remember we did 2 days of doing that, and my sight hurt. We laughed and we laughed and we laughed. Had a lovely time.
Yeah. What do you love most about the industry and theatre and things like that?
Again, lots and lots and lots of things, but it is the acting itself.
Mm.
There's something about that. There's something about that. You can't worry about something else when you're doing it. It's absolutely all encompassing. I love it. I love that mix of terror and excitement. That's a feeling like no other. I was trying to describe to a friend the other day why I miss theatre so much. And I even said the smell, and she said, "What do you mean the smell?" And I said, "It's dust and fear." But it's a heady mix. It's wonderful. That moment just before when you almost wish you weren't there, but you want to be there. And also somehow there's something even about auditions, tough as they are, that brings out the, come on, you can do it. Try this, try that. I love it. And also the biggest thing, I've done a lot of comedy, is in a theatre, that wonderful life-affirming sound of a rolling laugh around the auditorium. Oh, I love laughter en masse. It's so, I can't wait to hear it again.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I remember I went to the Palladium not long after lockdown to see Songs for a New World. And that, I mean, the atmosphere in that auditorium on that day was just incredible. It's not, I mean, I've been to loads of shows over the years where it's had the auditorium has an amazing atmosphere, but there was something about that particular day that made it so special, and you can see.
Oh, I know. Yeah, theatre is extraordinary, isn't it? Because there is that moment where you think this is just for us in this space. But you see, it can also be telly. I mean, I did a guest spot on Holby just sort of shortly before we went into lockdown.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful. So it's a slightly different kind of wonderful, because it's this detailed way of trying to get this character just right. And you have a number of goes at it, and you from the different shots, and as you close up, and I love that too, where you're creating this. It's sort of a different kind of work. It's the same, acting is exactly the same no matter what medium. The only difference, of course, is projection. So in a big theatre, you're having to project it over there, whereas on telly, if you're in close up, you've got to get it to the end of your nose. But it's the same thing. It's just a matter of projection. And I love learning more about that. But new things, love new things.
Looking back over your career, what are some of your highlights or favourite moments that you've done or had?
So I would probably have to say, Extras was a wonderful gig. I mean, that was a lovely gig to get, Extras. So I was the first one he ever said, "Are you having a laugh?" to. And so being a regular on Extras was wonderful. And and meeting people like Sarah Moyle, who's so funny, and Lisa Tarbuck and Ricky, and it was an amazing time. I loved doing Red Dwarf. So I was in series 12 of that. There's an outrageous character called Ziggy Bryceman in a ship that had no criticism. And so everything was wildly exaggerated, most of all me. And that was so much fun. And turning up, and I said this in an interview the other day, it's one of the few times I've actually come onto a set and almost screamed, because there's Crichton and there's all of them just sat there. There's Cat, and you think, and I'm sat here with them. And I used to watch them at university. We always used to troop off to the TV room. God, I'm dating myself now. But we used to troop and watch Red Dwarf. This was our program. And here I am sat with them, and I'm looking at them, literally doing a scene with them. So that was a highlight. Nativity is the show, doing Nativity and doing the film. And that stage show is so special. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh God, so many things. It's so hard to choose, because there are so many. Also, I love doing, I was in the Mousetrap for a year in town, and that is part of theatre history. I mean, the Mousetrap is what it is, but it's, God, it was so much fun. And I also made my best friend in the world there. She was playing Miss Casewell, and I was playing Christopher Wren in that. And so I was either, for that entire year, 06 to 07, I was either on stage or in Helen Kirkpatrick's dressing room. It was wonderful.
What is it about Nativity that makes you go back to it? And then what kept you going back to it?
It's fascinating. So it's the way Debbie works, I think, because it's never the same. If even if you come back to it another year, it's the same story, it's the same structure. Those lines won't be the same. Often they're not completely the same 2 shows running. It's got to be fresh. Otherwise Debbie won't have it. And she's quite right too. So there'll be different things in there. You're always reaching out for different things to put in there. It's got to change. It's never just set in aspect. So I love that. Also, the story is amazing. And the response from audiences is extraordinary.
Yeah.
That story, because it's intergenerational, because you'll be looking on the front row, and sometimes the finale quite often just turns into a party in the stalls.
Yeah.
People stand up and dance to Sparkle and Shine. It's also very festive at that time. It's a magical show.
I saw it in Southampton back in 2019, and I loved it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I sat.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah, I sat second or third row, and I'd seen the film. I mean, we've all seen the film and loved that, but there was something about the stage show that it just left me feeling so positive and uplifted.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, and
the Mayflag. Do you know, that week, I'll let you into a secret, everyone was going down with norovirus that week.
Yeah.
So it was hard to sparkle and shine through that, I tell you. And mind you, I always used the anti-bac. I always did, even before this, so I was all right. But yeah, it was like another one bites the dust.
The thing I went the day that Scott Page was off. He was off for quite a few days, and so I went and saw it then. But you know, it was really...
And so, did you see Simon?
Yes, I did. Yeah, and Simon's amazing. He was fantastic, and it was nice because obviously he originated the part when he was on stage, when it came to the stage first. So I've been wanting to see him for ages, and there was just something about his performance that was so...
Oh, he's wonderful. He's got a tremendous energy, and all is interesting because the rest of the cast, most of whom had not worked with Simon, I think some had, but a lot hadn't. I remember being backstage, and of course, Mr. Poppy starts the show, and you hear this voice. You're waiting off stage, me in a Christmas tree outfit at that point, which I won't tell you about. But I can remember them all saying to me, God, it sounds strange to hear another voice doing it. I thought, not remotely. I've heard him do it hundreds of times before. But no, it was lovely. And he came down at literally hours' notice.
Yeah.
So, you know, what a trooper.
Yeah, I mean, there's a moment during the show where I think him and Scott Garnham had a moment on stage. I don't know, one of them forgot a line or something happened, but you could see that they were trying not to laugh. But I think they did have a bit of a sort of a giggle and things like that. But
did they?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but I noticed it. I loved it. I love it when moments go wrong on stage. And I think the beauty about that show is you can get away with it a bit, especially with him and, you know, with Mr. Poppy and, you know, those two. I think you sort of get away with moments and things like that. But no, I love the show, and a few of my friends ended up seeing it when it went to London, and they loved it. And yeah, and it was really good.
It's a huge theatre there. The London one, we always did it at the Hammersmith Apollo. So it's called something different, Eventim Apollo.
The Eventim Apollo, yeah.
I think we have to call it, well, I'm still old. I always call it the Hammersmith Apollo. So but that theatre is, I think, 3,600 seater. Yeah. I mean, that's extraordinary looking at there. Extraordinary. And particularly, I mean, I wasn't really particularly a musicals performer. My background was in straight theatre, very legit, you know, and that is much smaller. So to begin with, it was like, why are these people so far away? It's just so big. You can get them in, because the whole thing with plays is you've got to get them in, get them as near to me as possible. I need to see the whites of their eyes. So it did take a bit of adjustment, but I mean, I'm well adjusted now, and that was years ago.
Yeah. So how did you end up getting Nativity? Because you're not known for your musicals like you normally do, you know, your straight theatre. How did Nativity come about?
Here you go with Debs, you see, because Debs casts, I think she just wants to see some interesting people. So it doesn't, I don't think Debs really cares what you've done before, especially what kind of actor you've been before. It's more, get them in, so your agent gets you a casting. And I remember going in, and this wonderful, mischievous presence sat there. And you know, you need something to go in, and I don't know, sometimes you just like someone on the spot. And I liked Debs on the spot. There was something fun and mischievous. And do you know, if I were to try and bottle it would be like, she'd be saying, go on, try it. That's sort of what she's like. And, you know, have a go, try it. And so I did 2 songs, and I'm, you know, all right as a singer, but not wonderful. But that wasn't the point. She's after I think she's looking for, what characters have I got in this? Who can I use as various characters? And so really I was very fortunate in that I got the chance to really play the majority of the character cameo comedy parts in it. The critic and the priest, and then the tour guide, and a nasty receptionist, and an egotistical Christmas tree, and in the opening, you know, so you get all these lovely little bits. So yeah, that's why I go back, is because it's always different and it's always fun and it is magical.
Yeah. So would you do more musicals, or do you think you're going to stick to straight?
Oh no, I would. I got a huge respect for people who do musicals. And do you know who I really respect? Swings.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. I don't get it. I mean, the talent there is extraordinary. I mean, if I'm going to go on and do something, I need to have gone over it and over it. And that's your part, isn't it? You do the more part and you polish that. Well, they know about 4 different parts. Extraordinary. And, you know, just the amount, you see them dance. I mean, when it's first set, the dances, I mean, I'll get them eventually. But to begin with, I'm like a contestant on the Generation game. I look like Larry Grayson just trying to join in the Morris dancing. It's hopeless. But eventually you get there. But you see their degree of talent is something else.
I knew one of the swings who did 42nd Street in London, and obviously the ensemble for that is massive. And he was showing me like the swing Bible where he has notes, everything. No, and I got headaches watching it.
That's nightmarish to me. I can't. No. If I haven't rehearsed this for 3 weeks, gone over it, thought about it, then I'm ready to go on and play with it. But crikey, really, no. But I think I'm a very unlikely swing, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think there's one performance you're saying where he went on for about 3 or 4 people that he was the swing for. He had so many people off that he had to go on and do 3 or 4 people. And I was like, mate, if that was me, I'd get a headache and I'd forget something. I don't know who I'll be on for and things like that.
No, be somewhere in a corner, bursting into tears, probably. That sounds like my idea of utter hell. No.
So what shows or roles would you like to play?
Do you know, I always make a point of trying not to identify stuff, because actually the lovely thing is taking what comes. And I think actually trying to plan, I mean, in this business, never plan. I mean, the only thing I always say is if you really want a job, book a holiday. If you want to be certain to get a job, pay for the holiday. So that's the key. Always, that's when it happens. But increasingly, I love doing telly, particularly TV comedy. And of course, that's new writing. And there's nothing as exciting as someone saying, I'm just writing this new thing. And I think there's something for you in it. You think, oh, how wonderful to originate something.
Yeah.
But I mean, I suppose if you're pushing me in terms of part to play, I've always quite fancied the idea of playing Malvolio in Twelfth Night. I think I could do that. So maybe that one.
Yeah. How do you deal with audition nerves?
Well, I would say there's a difference between nice nerves and nasty nerves. So nasty nerves are when they're putting you off, you're shaking, you're thinking about the nerves rather than what you're doing. Nice nerves are when you feel keyed up.
Yeah.
And for me, the difference is this. It's about a psychological thing just before I go in. So instead of thinking, oh my God, I've got to go in any second and I'm doing it and don't make me go in, don't make me go in. I've got to change that to let me go in now. Let me go in now. I want to go in now. Let me go in right now. And if that's the thought in your head, it's like, no, I want to do this because I want to stop feeling like this inside, all churned up. I want to go in and do it. And I can do it. And then you go in and you focus on it, and it's like it's a show.
Yeah.
Like it's a show. It's a performance. You're doing it. Also, remember, in auditions, they're not expecting perfection. They're not probably even wanting perfection. They want to see something there that says, oh, he can play that. He can do this.
Yeah.
There's a moment, they're looking for that. So it's not about this has to be perfect, but what they don't want is someone coming in looking terrified, because there's not much they can do with that casting-wise, really.
Yeah. 2 of my friends who I was at uni with, they went to the open auditions for Cats, the Royal Caribbean production. They went to the singing audition. And just after that, they made a decision to go to the dance call as well. And obviously the Cats, the dance call is very ballet and things like that. And they remember sort of sitting down, talking to the other people at the singing audition. And they went, oh, so you're going to the dance audition? They went, yeah, we're going to the dance call. And they went, really? For Cats? And they went, yeah, we're going to go. It'll be fine. We'll be fine. They went along and they packed, because it's an open audition, obviously loads of people turned up, and they packed about 60 people into this really small room, and they were at the back, stuck in the corner. And all the auditionees and that for the dance school, they were trained dancers, ballet dancers who could get their legs up to here. And those two at the back shivering in the corner because they just couldn't pick any of it up. And the choreographer, she's an American lady. She came in, she was literally there for about 3 seconds. She taught them the choreography, then buggered off. And just before she left the room, she's like, is there anyone who needs any help? And about 5 people put their hands up, and she went, no, okay, and left. And so there were about 5 people who didn't know what they were doing. And so, including my 2 friends, and they had to copy the person in front of them who was like a trained dancer, and they were getting all the lines right and things like that. And after that, they went, right, so we're going to get you to all leave the room, and then we're going to call you in 2 at a time, and you need to do the choreography from one corner to the next on your own, in a pair. And they went, well, hang on a minute, we've not been taught to do it. Like, we've been taught to do it in a straight line in front of the room, and now you want to do it corner to corner traveling. So they left the audition room, and they sat there for about 5 minutes waiting to be called in, and they looked at each other, picked up their bags and left. They just didn't want to be embarrassed, so they picked their bags and went. And on the way back, they bumped into a friend of theirs who trained at Lane Theatre Arts, and she'd just done a dance call as well. And she was like, I'm so confused by that audition because it's completely different to any other dance call I've done before. And so they didn't get it. But I mean, because we'd done Cats in second year at uni, and it was a difficult show to do, so I think they wanted to try out for the professional production, but I think they're going to leave it and not. They've sort of written.
Yes, yeah,
it's a difficult.
Yeah,
show.
I mean, Cats is very, very particular. I mean,
when I was playing Gus, which is one of the cats that don't do dancing. But they shoved me in a few of the choreography numbers. I couldn't pick any of it up. I was just sat there going, I didn't know any of it, and I was at the front row. And some guy was sat at the front row going, anyway, what is your process for creating a character?
Well, I think it's a bit different. I don't know that there's a method that you use all the time. I suppose if you're trying to isolate it, what you do is you read it, you reread it, I make some notes on just the character. But the first thing is more what's happening psychologically. If you get the inside of it, what are they trying to do? Even if you're playing really light comedy, it's got to be rooted in at least some level of a truth. Even if then the playing style is quite exaggerated, it's got to be about something that's true about that person. What is it about them? Yeah. They are, if it's Patrick Burns in Nativity, although he's a big character, he's bitter. There's clearly something's happened in the past, lonely. The sort of child that used to like pulling wings off flies. What is it about him? And then after you do that, you think, okay, I've got what's his relationship to other people? Got that. Now, physically, what's he like? You then have to decide, well, how does he move? Is he, there's some people use that thing of, is he a ring? Is he a glide? Then you begin to think, okay, that's what he does. Is he someone who fiddles? Is he a nervous character or not? And then you think, well, what's the voice like? And you've got to be very, very specific about it. It's not just where does he come from in the country, and does he have an accent? Is how strong is it? Is it? When I did Patrick Burns, I decided that he would be definitely southeast, probably Kent, I thought, but trying to not sound like it, so it becomes poshed up Kent or something like that. And that's when you then go, yeah, I think I've got how he sounds, I've got how he moves, and I definitely know what he thinks and feels, and then you're ready to play.
So you're having a dinner party, and you can invite 3 people from the industry, living or dead. Who are you inviting?
Oh gosh, I can have 3 people from the industry.
Oh yeah, living
or dead. Okay, I think I'd like to have. See, they've got to get on, haven't they? I definitely would like to meet Noel Coward. I think he'd be fascinating. So I'm going to go with Noel Coward. I think it would be really interesting to have a chat with William Shakespeare. I mean, I don't know if he'll have washed, because I don't know what the hygiene was like then, but we'll take a chance on that. We'll put him next to the potpourri. And then I think I'd also like to see from, oh, I tell you who I love, who'd be fabulous, Kathy Burke.
Yeah.
I think Kathy Burke would be brilliant with those two. I think she'd be lovely with Coward and Shakespeare. That's who I want. I want Noel Coward, William Shakespeare, and Kathy Burke.
Yeah. What have been some of your favourite theatres to perform in?
Oh, tricky one. Lots of different reasons. So one that I really loved was the Stephen Joseph up in Scarborough, which of course is Eight Balls Theatre, really, where he originates a lot of his work. And I loved it because it was in the round, and I'd not done in the round for years acting. Then I got a job doing Neville's Island up there, and I wondered if I'd like it. Well, I loved it. There's something about, once you get used to the technicalities of it, having everyone around you and close to you, which is what you want in a play. You want anyone to feel far away. Oh, I loved it. Just before, it's terrifying because you think, I'm literally going out into the lion's den here. There's nowhere to hide. There's people behind you, at the side of you, but it's wonderful. So that theatre is very, very special to me. It's one of those things you go, that's something. Never assume that you don't like something. Actually, you might love it when you try it. And I also have a real soft spot for the St. Martin's Theatre in London, where I did The Mousetrap. Beautiful, 550 seats, perfect playhouse. Acoustic is wonderful. If you can't make yourself heard there, there's something the matter with you. It's beautiful, that theatre. And all backstage there, they have the old wind machine. I mean, it's like you go back in time. It is so fascinating. So that was a wonderful, happy time. So I love that theatre. And I've also got fond memories of the Birmingham Rep. I like the Birmingham Rep. It's where we opened Nativity for the very first time, where it had its premiere. So I'm hugely fond of that theatre too. Beautiful.
Yeah. So have you been keeping busy for the last few months?
Yeah, I loathe lockdown. I think it's necessary. Let's be clear about that. I worry that we unlock down too fast. But yeah, I'm lucky, as I was saying, I also have another job. So whereas I've been looking on social media, you can see horrific people in horrific situations in the arts who are having to literally sell possessions to pay the rent, and it's awful. And I'm very fortunate I haven't had to do that, because I'm as I said, the principal coach at the London Speech Workshop, so I've been able to work virtually full time. So there's been no problem there, and I know I'm very, very fortunate to be able to do that. And so that was lovely, not having that worry. So that's how I've been keeping busy. And also now self-tapes are coming in, and so learning this new skill about how does one self-tape well. And it takes a while, but it's beginning to get the hang of it. So I think we'll still be doing more self-tapes. I hope it's not just self-tapes. I think it would be a real thing. You've got to be able to see the whites of someone's eyes too, in a way. And also part and parcel of that audition process is the meeting you, especially telly, because they often want to see if you might be a little bit like the character that they, because then it's really easy for you to be very convincing, because the camera will sniff out a lie very quickly if it's not authentic. So I hope things go back to in-person, or at least Zoom meetings. But, self-tapes, it's a convenient, quick way of doing it that gets more people seen. So it has its advantages too.
I did a self-tape for a panto back in, I think it's end of September, October. We'd done sort of self-taping at uni and things like that. Someone came in and taught us how to do it. So I sort of knew the technicalities, but it was really odd. It was odd not sort of auditioning and seeing the person in front of me.
I wish someone had taught me, but mind you, back then we didn't even used to do show reels then. I mean, we're talking years ago.
But the beauty about self-taping is, I suppose you can do it as many times as you want,
if it goes wrong, you can start again. You decide what goes in. It gives you power in a way. So that's nice. Sometimes you're pleased about a self-tape if it's really complicated dialogue and you think, phew, if you had to do this in the room, you'd have one stab at it. You'd have to have the words on your knee, whereas, there are swings and roundabouts, aren't there?
Yeah. So do you have any acting jobs lined up for this year?
Well, possibly Nativity is supposed to go to the Birmingham Rep actually later on this year. So hopefully, the trouble is, I was discussing this with a friend the other day. It is so difficult, this situation, because you don't know what's going to happen.
No.
What new variants come along, and you almost don't want to hope for something, because then you've got to unhope for something and be let down. So I'm trying not to think about it too much. But yeah, there are certain things in the pipeline, and something else as well that would be lovely too. But we'll see. But at the moment, we're still very much in the world of, well, possibly. You just don't know. Hopefully, say our prayers.
And it's nice sort of seeing recently, especially in the past week, a lot of shows sort of planning their reopening and things like that. You know, especially
let's just keep our fingers crossed. Let's keep our fingers crossed about how, let's hope the vaccination is okay, because like we say with the vaccination, providing it stops, even with new variants, it stops serious disease, hospitalizations, death, then we can cope with that. But it's just along the path. So fingers crossed, we just don't know. I call it the corona coaster. It's like up, down, hopeful, despairing. You just don't know, do you?
I mean, because of the job I have, I had my vaccine a couple of months ago, and so I just feel sort of, it's nice really, because you sort of feel a big part of us getting, out of all of this and things like that. And you see people.
What job do you do?
I work in a mental health hospital, like in the kitchens and things like that, weekends, just while our industry shut down and that. But we had our vaccine a few weeks ago, and it's just sort of nice being, when you think how awful the past year has been, and the fact that we thought we would maybe get, we weren't too sure when a vaccine would come.
We didn't know if we'd have a vaccine, did we? No. Not really, that would work. Did it hurt? Was it all right? Tell me all.
Originally I was meant to have the Pfizer one, and I went to my local race course to have it, but they turned me away. And they literally sat me down and was about to administer the vaccine. And they're like, "Oh, have you had any vaccines in the past week?" And I went, "Yeah, the flu vaccine, like 7 days ago."
Oh, yeah, they won't allow you to have it, will they?
The lady was like, "Right, give me 7 minutes." And she spoke to about 15 people just to confirm whether or not I could still have it. And she came back and she got really up close to me and was like, "Right, I'm really sorry, but you can't have the vaccine today. Do you mind coming back next week?" But they had to send me to work to have it a week later. So I ended up having the Oxford one. But it was literally in and out. I mean, because the Oxford vaccine is a type of vaccine they've used before, they don't make you wait 15 minutes.
Do they not? Apparently, some people say the arm gets a bit achy and you might feel a bit man-fluey for a day afterwards.
I felt quite rough for about 24, 48 hours. I had to take the day off work the next day.
Did you?
About 8 o'clock. About 8 o'clock at night, I started feeling really tired. And within 2 hours, I just felt rough. I couldn't I felt awful. So I had to ring and work and was like, "Not coming in tomorrow, just feel rough." So I spent the next sort of 2 days resting.
And like how rough? So rough on a scale of what? Like can't get out of bed, or just feeling a bit yuck?
Just feeling a bit icky, sick, and things like that. Headachy, nothing serious. I mean, when
I'm terrible. I'm awful with being ill. If ever I'm old in an old people's home, I shall be awful. Oh, I'll be. If ever I'm in Denville Hall, I shall be because I can't bear being ill. I'm terrible. I was always the same. I can't bear it. Apparently, when I was little and I was ill, I would never say I was ill. I used to go up to my mum and say, "I feel very cross." And that was apparently, and she'd say, "Do you mean ill? Do you mean ill?" Because apparently I would say, "I feel really cross." And that meant, because that's how I feel inside. I'm not one of those little Nell, elegantly wan and suffering on a chair. I'm not that at all. So watch out if it's me. If you're caring for me in old people, so.
I started panicking a bit because you hear all these stories about, vaccine, people making up conspiracy theories about the vaccine and say it's going to make you really ill and things like that. And I didn't believe any of it, obviously. But when I started feeling a bit rough 2 hours after having the vaccine, something in my head was going, what about if they've got a point? What about this vaccine is actually dodgy? And
but the thing is with vaccines is that it's always known that if you had to go abroad and they inoculate you for all sorts of ghastly things, don't they? You nearly always feel just dreadful about 24 hours afterwards. So it's known that, because what it's doing is it's giving you a little bit of this thing to train your body to say, now if you encounter the big bugger, you're actually going to be just fine.
Yeah. One final question. What advice would you give to people coming into the industry?
I would say you should only do it if you really love it, if you need to do it, if you feel that you absolutely need to do it. I would say that you need to really sit down and have a chat with yourself about saying, why do I feel I can do it? And also believe in yourself. So if you're always looking for external validation in this industry, important though it is to get jobs, you won't be happy. You have to ultimately have an inner core of a self-belief about what you think you can do and why you love it. And also, as I was saying to you before, about making sure that getting an acting job is never an escape from a life you don't like. That would be my advice. So there's a little bit of sort of how your own head state advice there, but also a bit of practical advice about how you organise your life too.
Yeah, I mean, over the past few months, I've had to have a lot of, because obviously the industry being shut and the fact that it's going to be a gradual reopening, I've had to sort of sit down and think, is it what I want to do? I mean, I've known for years that it's what I want to do. And when I left school, I went to college and I did a BTEC in performing arts and then went to uni. And I got to spend 5 years studying what I wanted to study and, in a subject that I'm really passionate about. So I left uni knowing that's what I wanted to do. But then I had to sort of think to myself, look, this is going to be a gradual reopening of the industry. And it's going to be, I think, the survival of the fittest, and everyone's going to go back into it and, auditioning for stuff. And there's going to be a lot more rejection. So I've had to sort of sit down and think, is it what I want to do? And am I prepared to wait for that first job? And I just had to sit down and go, yeah, it is what I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. And I will find a way of making it happen. And if I have to wait 2-3 years for my first acting job, that's what I'm prepared to do. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to get my headshots done. I'm going to get my show reel put together, and I will send it off to people. And I've got an agent at the moment, and I had an email the other day she contacted me about a job possibly later on in the year abroad. Couldn't audition for it because I was work the day it had to be in, but to see that email start to come through and sort of possibility of getting work, it filled me with a bit of hope, really, because I've had the past few weeks I felt really down and things like that. And so to get that email through about, oh, hi Dominic, do you want to audition for this holiday resort in Cyprus? They're looking for someone to get that, although I couldn't.
Well, I wish you all the very, very best of luck with it. I really do. And if that's what you want to do, then you go for it. You absolutely go for it. And it sounds like you've got absolutely the right attitude. So I wish you all the very, very best of luck.
Thank you. I've run out of questions, but thank you for letting me chat to you today. It's been very kind of you. I love chatting to you and getting to know you and things like that. I've seen you in Nativity and that, so I knew who you were beforehand, but it's been really nice to get to talk to you in person. Thank you, and good luck with the next few months and all the acting work and things like that. And keep safe.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank